All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. It's that time of the week.
PSGL today is PlayStation's F9, and we arrive at the USA for round 13 of season 30. And, yeah,
Definitely going to be an interesting track strategy-wise.
any safety cars, which tend to happen because going side by side in the first sector is definitely a challenge.
There's an even turn one. It's pretty difficult to go side by side into there, so we could see some interesting strategies. But let's get straight into man out on track is going to be in Perry in that Ferrari, and he is going to be the first man to set a lap time in this short qualifying session to decide the grid for today's Grand Prix. But sadly, we only have 11 drivers with us today. A lot of people not really able to make it. So yeah, it looks like so long as you don't come last place, you will be getting points this race. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And if there's a DNF, then everyone's going to get points. So this could be interesting championship-wise, as a lot of people who may be at the back of the championship can gain a lot of ground in this round. So yeah, we'll have to see how it all plays out. And I haven't actually done this before, but looking at the standings after round 12, which was the Singapore Grand Prix, LFR Indigo, even after not having the best of races at Singapore, still leads the championship. He has 113 points over RS Joshua, who has 84 points, so he's got a decent 19 point, or no, sorry, I can't do maths. That's almost a 30 point lead, a 29 point lead, and Liam Craig has 80 points, so he's just 4 points behind RS Joshua. And then DiGuedo has 51 points. So it looks like the top three are the main contenders in this championship. And there's not too many rounds to go. This is the third to last round. So RS Joshua and Liam Craig are going to have to make up a lot of points in this championship if they want to be crowned the PSF 9 Season 30 champion here in PSGL. But Imperi has just started his first lap time of the session, currently going through the S's and rounding off the first sector, now coming into the second sector up the hill into this little chicane here, a bit of a longer chicane in this middle sector, now coming down into this hairpin that will bring us onto the very, very long DRS straight that will take us down to turn 12, which will be the prime overtaking spot, if I had to guess, around this track, as it's definitely a good place to go down the inside or even around the outside, as we see Imperi coming into here, just about hitting that apex and using plenty of exit curve as he sets a purple sector 2, and now just coming into the final sector, coming to this very tricky left-hander to get the power down and get nice traction out of there. Now coming around the triple right-hander and into the final two turns. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of lap time this is now into the final left-hander and the final turn of the circuit. DRS wide open, and across the line is going to be a 132.5 as LFR Indigo right behind him sets a 130.9. That's a great time from LFR Indigo as a banker time, and that's going to be quite hard to beat for the rest of the drivers, as it looks like Liam sets a lap time there, but 131.2, 3/10 off of Indigo's 30.9, and it looks like Joshua currently on the lap time, currently in the middle sector on the long DRS straight, now coming into turn 12 and about to enter the final sector of the lap, as looks like a little bit of a lockup going into that turn, and another lockup going into this right-hander, and struggling to get the power down there a little bit, coming out of that right-hander. But now in the final sector, coming up this triple right-hander, and then the final 2 turns of the circuit. And let's see what kind of time is it going to be compared to everyone else. It looks like he completely misses that apex there, and that's going to lose him quite a bit of time. So there's quite a bit of time to be found and gained on his next lap, as he sets a 32.6, and that's definitely not the best banker time. Almost 2 seconds off of LFR Indigo, and I think he'll definitely be looking to improve on that lap time. And looks like Mentos and Wagner actually invalidated their first laps, and Wagner invalidates his second lap as well. Mentos currently on his second lap, coming through the final 2 turns and about to end off his lap. And what kind of time is it going to be for the Alfa Romeo driver? It looks like it's going to be a 1:32 flat, but that is on 2-lap-old soft compound tires. So that might not be fully representative of what he can do in this session. So I'm sure there's plenty of time to be found there as he slots in 3/10 behind his teammate. Looks like Clark in the Red Bull, the only man to go out on the medium compound of tires in this session. And let's see how he does on these tires. Looks like struggling a bit there in the S's with these medium tires. Wasn't really hitting the apexes, but he does tell us that he has a purple sector 1. So I might be wrong in saying that. Maybe that was a decent first sector, as now into the middle sector, into this turn 11 hairpin, and onto the very long DRS straight, really pushing the track limits there, almost invalidating his lap time, getting nice and close to the white line to gain as much time as possible. Now coming into the turn 12 hairpin, and looks like he takes plenty of curb going into there. That's going to gain him quite a bit of time. He sets a purple sector 2, so he is on the medium compound of tires and apparently going very, very quickly on them, but I'm not sure if the game is lying to us with those purple sectors. But nonetheless, doesn't look like the worst lap time so far, as takes quite a bit of curb there on the first of the 3 right-handers. Now about to enter the final turn, and let's see what kind of lap time this is going to be. It looks like he's a pretty nice lap so far from Clark, but obviously with the mediums, a massive delta between the mediums and the softs around the USA circuit. And yeah, as you can see, it looked almost 2 seconds off of LFR Indigo, so I'm sure he's going to have to go onto onto a fresh set of softs and go for another lap, because that's definitely a suboptimal lap, as he wants to be going much faster than that. Looks like Liam and Indigo both currently on their out laps, and I think we're going to ride on board with Indigo and see what he can do for his second lap time in this session. As you can see, taking it nice and easy into these turns, try to save on the tire wear before he goes for his next qualifying lap. Keep the tire temperatures in check, as the tire temps do get quite high around this circuit, and that's also contributing to quite high tire deck as well. Although I do think a medium soft or soft medium strategy is possible, but we'll have to see once the race begins. But right now we're in qualifying. Indigo about to start his second lap of the session, and let's see if he can improve on that 1:30.9. About to round out the final turn of his out lap, and about to begin his second lap of the session. So let's ride on board for this entire lap and see how fast he can go around this circuit. Coming into turn 1 now, able to hit that apex quite nicely. Doesn't use any of the exit curb, so getting a bit late on the power, but it's definitely hard to get a bit of traction out of there. Coming into the S's now, and into this double right-hander, which then shoots you into the second sector up the hill to a right-left turn. And that's, yeah, as you can see there, has a bit of a slide there. Definitely you struggle for the traction out of there, as it looks like he's actually made a mistake in his lap somewhere. Maybe that was enough to, you know, make him abandon his lap time, because he's decided to give up on this lap and maybe go for it again on the very next lap. So maybe it was that slide, or maybe he just didn't take the first sector as well as he might have wanted to. But his main rival right now, Liam, currently on a lap time. As it says, he sets a purple sector 1 using plenty of curb going into that right-hander, getting nice traction out of that left-hander, and now coming into the middle sector. And let's see how he takes these next few turns as he comes onto the DRS straight. And if he has a purple sector 1, he might be looking good to challenge Indigo for pole position. And let's come into turn 12 now and round off the middle sector, taking plenty of curb going into there. A bit of a lockup and a little bit of wheel spin coming out of that turn. He's a tenth and a half up on his time, and it says he has a purple sector 2, so maybe all the time is to be found in the final sector, hitting that apex on that left-hander, now into the triple right-hander of this final sector and into the final 2 turns. And is he fast enough to compete with LFR Indigo and go for pole position in this qualifying session? Into the final turn now and across the line. What kind of time is it going to be? It's going to be a 1:31 flat, so he's just 1/10 off of Indigo, and not too far away from that provisional pole position. So looking pretty decent in this session. Looks like King invalidated his last lap time. Mentos, his teammate, currently on a lap time with the DRS wide open coming into turn 12. And let's see how nicely he can take this final sector. And could we see him up there with the top 2 and competing for pole position in this Alfa Romeo of his? As it looks like he's 3/10 up on his time, so looking decent so far. And now coming into the final sector, a little bit of a lock-up into there, but it looked like a pretty nice turn. Got a very nice rotation going into that turn, hit the apex, was able to get on the power nice and early, and just has 2 more turns to go in this lap. And what kind of time is it going to be from Mentos? As I'm sure you want to be battling it out with the top 2 for pole position. And across the line, he's going to set a 1:31.4, so just 5/10 off of the provisional pole time, and not too far away from that pole position dream. But plenty of time still to go in the session. Still 5.5 minutes in this short qualifying session. Looks like Joshua currently not on a lap time, as looks like he might have invalidated his first lap time, and just going to come back into the pit lane to put on a new set of soft compound tires and get ready for his final lap of the session. I don't think anyone else is on a lap in Perry that has invalidated his lap time. It does look like Clark is currently on a lap time. He went for the mediums at the start, but he's now come on to the soft tires, so let's see how fast he can go on these tires as comes into turn 12 now and about to start his final sector. And it looks like he is 1 second up on his medium time, so that just goes to show how big the difference is between the softs and the mediums. Obviously a massive difference. The softs are so much faster around this track, but they do not last anywhere near as long as the mediums. But he's a second up on his lap time, and looking like a pretty decent lap so far. Now just has 1 more turn to negotiate, and this could put him in a pretty decent position, but it looks like he just invalidates on the final turn there, and that would have been a 1:31.7, which would have put him P5, so the pace is there, but just struggling with the track limit slightly. Looks like Dave is currently on a lap in his McLaren on the medium compound of tires, but I think he's possibly made a mistake at some point in this lap time, and yeah, I'd be right in saying that as he comes into the pit lane to get on a new set of tires, just making sure the barriers are all safe going into there, as he gives a little tap to the right hand barrier, but comes into pit lane now and is going to be getting ready for his final lap time of the session, as if I'm not mistaken, not too much longer to go in the session as King coming into the pit lane. That's why there is a yellow flag and why we cannot see how much time is left in the session, but it does look like there is 3 minutes and a half left to go, so not much time for the drivers to set their final laps. LFR Indigo has only set 1 lap time in the session, good enough for provisional pole so far, but I'm sure he'll be looking to improve on that time, as Liam, Mentos and King all looking for that pole position lap. So Indigo needs to make sure that he gets a nice lap time in, make sure it's nice and fast, and clears himself from the rest of the drivers and boosts himself in the championship. Like I said before, 29 point lead. So he's looking pretty good to win this championship here in PSGL in F9. But he still has 3 rounds to go, and a lot could go wrong. He's been struggling in the last few rounds, but I'm sure he can pull it back. As Joshua and Liam need to score quite a few points in the final few rounds. They better hope that Indigo gets some sort of DNF in one of the races, otherwise they won't be looking too good in this championship. LFR Indigo now coming up to the penultimate turn and getting ready to start his final lap of the session, although he might have time for one more lap if he can get around the circuit fast enough, as getting on the power nice and early to start this lap. And let's see how fast he can go with the track evolution at its best, coming into turn 1, hitting that apex very nicely, getting on the power as early as possible. Coming into the S's now, how well can he take these? How hard is he willing to push the track limits? And it looks like he pushes them quite hard. They're almost invalidating his lap time, and just with that right-hander there, getting very close to the track limits. Coming up the hill now, and going back down to come into the next hairpin to put himself onto the DRS straight. Looks like a pretty decent first sector so far, coming into the hairpin now, and that hits that apex quite nicely, using plenty of the exit curb to give himself the best exit possible to get on the power as early as possible. And now coming into turn 12 to round off his middle sector. How well can he take this? How much curb can he take? A decent amount. A little bit of a lock-up stopped him from rotating the car there, as it looks like he's a tenth and a half up on his time, looking pretty good so far. Now in the final sector, a little bit of a lock-up, but still gets some decent rotation going into that left-hander, into the triple right-hander, and coming down the hill, and now into the final 2 turns. And this is most likely going to be his last lap time of the session, so let's see what kind of time is it going to be for LFR Indigo. And across the line, it's a 1:30.6, improves by 2/10. So that's a good time from LFR Indigo. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that one, as Wagner sets a 1:31.2. I think that might be his session over, but that's a decent time from the Alpine driver. Puts him P3 currently, but lots of people still to improve, one of which is Liam, but it looks like he's invalidated his lap time, and he is not going to have enough time to set another lap in this session. So a 1:31 flat is going to be his final time, and he will not be getting pole position in this qualifying session. Mentos has just begun his lap time, currently in the first sector, and coming out of the S's now into the middle sector, up the hill into this right-left corner, and then down to the hairpin to get himself set up for the DRS straight. Looks like that Alpine getting out of the way nice and early as not to block his lap. Coming into here, looks like a bit late on the power there, using 4th gear out of that turn, as it looks like getting very close to track limits there, and that's a little bit of lag there from Mento's side, I think. And coming to round off his middle sector, looks like takes lots of curb going into there, and now in the final sector, as it's not giving us his proper sector time, so I don't know how much he's improving by, but let's hope he is improving, because he needs to get a decent lap time in at the end of the session. He could be looking at a front row start for the race, or even pole position if he goes fast enough into the final turn now. And how well can he take this, and how fast was this lap time at the end of the session across the line? It's going to be an improvement of 0.5 but not an improvement of position. That's going to be Mentos' session over. Wagner is not going to be setting another lap time. Is Imperi currently on the lap? Is Clark currently on the lap? It looks like everyone's session is now over, and that is going to be the end of qualifying here at the US of A. And LFR Indigo takes pole position for tonight's Grand Prix. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that, and if he can win this race, he'll be looking very, very good in the championship. And who knows, maybe in a few weeks' time, he will be the PSF9 PSGL world champion. But we'll have to see how it all plays out. Liam starts on the front row, and will be looking to take first place away from him going down into turn 1. Wagner getting a late lap in at the end of the session. Wasn't looking too good at the start. I think he was down in the midfield. Didn't really notice him. But he's currently P3 with a 1:31.2. Very fast lap time indeed. Mentos starts right ahead of his teammate King. The Alfa Romeos take P4 and 5. West Ice starts P6 with RS Joshua, who is fighting for this championship, in P7. He's going to be looking to score some decent points today, but it might be difficult given his starting position. And Perry in P8 on the grid. It looks like Spirit qualified on the medium compound of tyres, and so did Dave, but he qualified outside of the top 10, so he will most likely be starting on the fresh medium tyres instead of the ones that he used in qualifying. And Clark starts P10. It looks like his best time was actually on the medium compound of tyres. It looks like he didn't improve on the softs, and I don't think that was a pace issue. I think it was because he invalidated on the softs, as it's very hard to get the track limits right here around this track, and especially with the softs, you just have so much speed going into the turns, and that's so easy to just slightly go wide and invalidate your lap time. But there you go. LFR Indigo gets pole position by 3.5 tenths. That's a decent lead for Indigo, and I'm sure that's going to fill him with confidence. But Liam was not able to get a lap time in at the end of the session, since he did invalidate his final time. But nonetheless, I think Indigo is going to be very happy with that result. The driver is now getting ready to get onto the grid and get this Grand Prix started, or get this Grand Prix underway. So strategy-wise here for this Grand Prix, personally I think it's going to be a soft medium strategy, with the bottom 3 all starting on the mediums and going to the softs at the end, but I don't really expect them to be staying in the DRS of the top 8, as like I've said before, once again, the soft tyres are a lot faster than the mediums, and I think the medium runners will just be looking to stay within a 3-second gap to the cars ahead. But safety cars can always change up the strategy and possibly entice some drivers to go for the 2-stop. If there's a safety car, I highly doubt that anyone will be going onto the hard compound of tyres, because they are not the best race tyre around this track and will lose you a lot of time at this very high-speed circuit. A lot of grip required to go fast, and that's why the softs are the preferred choice of tyres. The game obviously thinking it's a 2-stop, and that is because the tyre wear is so high, but I'm expecting a lot of the soft runners to box around lap 12 or 13 if they want to go for some kind of overcut, and then go on to the mediums to the end of the Grand Prix. Safety cars not included, but we'll see how it all goes. As you can see there on the left-hand side, the top 8 all qualifying on the soft tyres, but with the bottom 3 all qualifying on the mediums, and Dave is allowed to start on a fresh set of mediums, since he did not qualify in the top 10. So you might see him going a little bit faster than TRD Spirit and Clark, but he needs to overtake them going into the first lap, or going into the second lap even. But Liam will be looking for the move down to turn 1. He will be hoping for some good traction off of the start to get that move done, as the lead here at USA is definitely very powerful. But that long DRS straight in the middle sector, it's very easy to get a move done there if the car ahead of you does not have the DRS. So the last place you want to be is the 3rd or 4th man in a DRS train. So you might see some aggression from Wagner, Mentos and King trying to get past the guys ahead of them. But Indigo now lining up onto the grid to get this USA Grand Prix underway. So let's see how this race plays out. Obviously, top 8 starting on the soft tyres, but they're slightly worn because they have to use the set they qualified on in that short qualifying session. So might struggle a bit for grip off the start, and I think a lot of drivers might struggle for tyre temps too, because they are quite brutal around this track. But looks like Dave now lined up onto the grid, and we're getting ready for this Grand Prix to get underway. We have 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man Indigo? And it does not look like the best start, because Liam has already pulled alongside and trying to cover him off going into turn 1. Liam with the inside line, Indigo trying to hold it around the outside. Liam really squeezing him off of the track there going into turn 1. It looks like Liam has gained the lead. Mentos moving up into P3. King not having the greatest of starts, moving down into P7. It looks like Imperi has made a mistake going into the S's, and that's caused him to retire from the session. Imperi is now out of the session on lap 1. That's a yellow flag in the first sector, and it might not be a safety car at this stage of the Grand Prix. Only just started, as he's now left the session. That's a shame to see, but only 10 drivers remain in the session now, after only 11 people showing up, and one of them DNFing on lap 1. Liam has the lead of the Grand Prix. Mentos was able to move himself up to P3. King falling all the way down to P7. It wasn't the greatest start from him, but is anyone going to be looking for a move into turn 12? It does not look like it, and all just slotting in behind each other. King will be looking to make up some positions after falling back so many, starting P5, falling down to P7. Definitely not the best start, getting nice and close to the back of RS Joshua, who has a little bit of wheel spin coming out of that left-hander, might be under a bit of pressure coming into this triple right-hander. As you can see, King has a little look around the outside there, does not have enough grip for that, and coming to the end of his lap time now, and under a little bit of pressure from the medium runner of Clark behind, as Liam sets it past half of the Grand Prix, obviously being in the lead after the opening lap. The perfect start for Liam, and just what he wanted from the start. As you can see, King trying to scare Joshua off of his line as he gets nice and close to the back of him. Mementos struggling to keep the pace with the top 2, and if I've learned anything from commentating on this division, Liam and Indigo are definitely 2 of the fastest drivers in this division, and are just able to pull away from anyone. But Mentos able to get back into that 1 second gap, and is going to be looking for DRS on lap 3 to help him defend from Wagner behind in that Alpine. He's going to be looking to also catch up to the top 2. We've seen some strong performances from Wagner, but right now he's tucked in the slipstream of Mentos, who doesn't have any slipstream of the cars ahead. So could we see Wagner go for a move into turn 12? I think the answer is yes. He goes for the outside line on Mentos, who's going to try and defend the inside, but it looks like Wagner's almost got the move done. And is he going to try and go for a switchback here? I think the answer is yes. He tries to go for the switchback, has the outside line for this right-hander, squeezes Mentos to the inside there, and it looks like he's going to have the inside line for this next left-hander. Can he get this move done? Mentos trying to hold that line, and Wagner squeezes him off of the track there, but gets that move done and moves himself up into P3 in this session. 1.7 seconds behind Indigos. They've lost quite a bit of time from this battling, as we see Joshua go a little bit wide coming out that turn. That could be a warning, 3 warnings, and that is going to be a 3-second time penalty, which is definitely not what you want to get yourself in this Grand Prix, as it can set you back quite a few positions. King obviously trying to make up some positions now, was following very closely behind Joshua, really wants to get past here and try and make his way back up the order and get to where his teammate is, currently 3 positions ahead of him, with the top 2 pulling away. Looks like Wagner able to close down the gap a little bit, as the gap was 1.7, now coming down to about 1.5, 1.4. So Wagner looks like he's got some decent pace in the lead of this DRS train, but the DRS is now enabled, and LFR Indigo is going to have it going down this straight. As you can see, DRS wide open, and is going to be chasing down Liam for the next few laps. As you can see, really closing down the gap going into turn 12, taking the racing line, as Liam defending the middle of the track to really give Indigo no options. King had a look for a move on Joshua. Could not make it stick. Is going to maintain P7 for now. The medium runners doing a great job to stick with the soft runners, and this could really help their strategies if there is no safety car. West Ice 9/10 behind Mentos there for a second. Really needs to keep up the pace, make sure he stays in the DRS of the cars ahead of him. But as you can see, Wagner losing quite a bit of time to the two ahead, since Indigo does have the DRS on Liam, and maybe looking for a move into turn one. And it looks like he is, so he tries to go around the outside, has a look, but does not commit to that move. But it looks like Liam goes a bit deep, so Indigo is going to go for the switcheroo, for the switchback, and up into P1 on lap 4 coming into the S's. So a crucial move there from LFR Indigo to get himself into the lead of this Grand Prix going into turn 1 with a very nice switchback move. And he'll be looking to push to try and break a little bit of a gap to Liam, but I doubt that will happen with the power of the DRS. It's really able to keep Liam within that 1 second gap. But coming onto this very long DRS straight now, we could see Liam go for a move, as the DRS does give you about 10 kilometers to 15 kilometers an hour extra speed on the straights, as it looks like King is also getting quite close to the back of Joshua, and it's now going for a move into turn 12, and he's got the move done before the braking zone with the power of the DRS. Wagner also losing P3 to Mentos, who moves up into P3. Wagner down in P4, but it looks like Wagner has gotten a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limits. He's going to be kicking himself after that one, as that's going to lose him so many positions. Currently would put him around P9, possibly even P10. But yeah, that's definitely not what he wanted at this early stage of the Grand Prix. Still 24 laps to go, and plenty of mistakes to make. Liam now just 3/10 behind Indigo's Mentos. Actually, that's the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, 1:35.6, so possibly gaining a bit of time on the top two, but that's still 2.1 seconds behind. He needs to push quite hard if he wants to get into the DRS of those two. But let's see if anyone opts for an overcut or an undercut to try and gain some kind of time on the leaders and switch up the strategy. As you can see, the gap now down to 1.8 seconds, so Mentos has found some pace and is using the air of Indigo, giving him plenty of understeer into those high-speed S's, and that's where Mentos is able to gain a little bit of time. But then coming onto this DRS straight, he's going to lose plenty of time to Liam, who has the DRS on Indigo. Is he going to be looking for a move into turn 12? I think the answer is yes, and he's going to go down the inside for the lead of this Grand Prix. Is Indigo able to hold it around the outside? I think the answer is yes. Indigo holds it around the outside there and maintains P1 in this race. Mentos getting it looks like Mentos getting overtaken by Wagner, now moved up into P3, and these two battling away. That's not really what they want to do. They want to work together to try and catch the top two, which right now they're not really doing. West Ice in the background of this mini DRS train, and just waiting to capitalize on one of them making a mistake. It looks like King has lost the DRS to the top 5, and the medium runners holding on quite nicely to the soft runners, apart from Dave, who's lost the DRS to the rest of the pack. And coming into turn 1, you see Clark is just able to hold a nice 5/10 gap to Joshua ahead of him, and that's really going to help him towards the end of the Grand Prix once he bolts on these soft compound tires, which are going to be a lot faster than the mediums towards the end. So let's see how that strategy works out for him, as he's got some decent pace at this stage of the Grand Prix. Looks like Wagner has made a mistake there coming up the hill into the left-hander. He's gotten too early on the power, spun the wheels and got himself into the wall. He's lost his entire front wing, and he is going to have to come into the pit lane to get that repaired. And I think that's really going to hurt his race. I think he's going to try and go on to the mediums to the end, but they're really going to struggle and might even get into the puncture territory towards the end. But as you can see now at the back of the grid, losing a lot of time to the rest of the field, and that might be his race over unless there is some kind of safety car. But that's a shame to see. Looks like Mentos will now be in P3 and not under too much pressure as he's only got one car behind him now, and that's West Ice as Clark on the medium tyres is able to overtake Joshua. I think Joshua has made a mistake coming out of the last left-hander and maybe spun the wheels too much, had a bit of a half spin because Clark has now moved up into P6 on the medium compound of tyres and right behind the soft compound tyre runner who's able to pull him along quite nicely. Clark putting himself in a great position in this Grand Prix and could even be looking at a podium in this race. We'll have to see, as he saved up plenty of ERS behind King and not really going for any moves. Obviously he knows that his tyres are not as grippy as the softs at this stage, but I think the mediums will start to get faster than the softs towards lap 10 or lap 9. As you see there, it looks like he's really able to stay quite close to King going through the S's, and yeah, I think he's doing something great in this race. It looks like Wagner has actually gone onto the hard compound of tyres, and that's the one thing I said you don't want to be doing, as the pace on the hards is definitely nowhere near as fast as the mediums or the softs, as it looks like Clark actually makes the move on King, so maybe the mediums have already gotten faster than the softs. Clark is now going to try and chase down the top four. Clark putting himself in a really great position in this Grand Prix on the mediums and gaining time on the soft runners already, and for the man who qualified in P10 could be looking at a podium. So we'll have to see as he's going to push on. He's already caught up, almost already caught up to the DRS of West Ice already. So he has got some great pace on those mediums, and you can only imagine what kind of pace he's going to have on the softs. And he's definitely going to be one to watch in this Grand Prix, as you can see there, just 2 tenths off the DRS coming onto lap 8. So he's obviously found some great pace on these mediums, and is already in the DRS of West Ice, and is going to be looking for a move possibly, and could get himself up into P3 before the pit stops, and that would really help him out in this race. As you can see, only lapping about a tenth and a half off of his fastest lap time this session, so he's really got some consistent, he's getting some consistent laps in at this early stage of the Grand Prix. Looks like not too many people looking for moves going into turn 12. Liam obviously in the DRS of Indigo, as he has been of laps, and he has a look down the inside. It looks like he's going to commit to that move going into turn 12. Can Indigo hold it around the outside for a second time? It doesn't look like he can, but he'll have the inside line for this next turn. Liam trying to go for a switchback move, and it looks like he almost got that done. Has the outside line for this next turn. He's not going to be able to make that stick, and tries to go for the switchback a second time in a row, but that's not going to work out for him. He has to maintain P2 for now. It looks like Indigo putting up a great defense, holding that line around the outside at turn 12 is definitely very impressive. And it looks like Indigo is already coming into the pit lane on lap 8 for the medium compound of tyres, and that's definitely very early to box. Mentos following him into the pit lane, and it's going to be interesting to see how those strategies play out. You'd have to assume they're coming onto the medium compound of tyres. As you can see there, their pit crews getting the mediums onto the car. And yeah, it looks like they're just going for a very aggressive undercut, and obviously Mentos had to try this to try and catch up to the top two, but I guess Indigo is going to try and break the DRS to Liam, but his tyres are going to be very worn towards the end of the Grand Prix. He's going to have to be quite wary of that, or possibly struggling with tyre temps. And maybe he thinks the mediums will be faster because of tyre temperatures. Obviously you're going around the track so much faster on the softs, and that's going to increase tyre temperatures. And it's going to be interesting to see if Liam responds to this on the next lap. He didn't respond when he saw Indigo coming into pit lane, so maybe he's got the tyre temperatures down to a pattern and can handle them around this track and get good pace on them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We can see the gap between Indigo and Liam down to 17.8 seconds. And that's pretty decent, as I think a pit stop around here is 19 to 20 seconds. So already gaining a little bit of time. But as you can see there, keeping around 17.7 as Wagner gets another 30-second penalty, bringing him up to 6 seconds. Liam now comes into the pit lane for a fresh set of medium compound tyres, and that is going to give West Ice the lead in this Grand Prix, with Clark right behind them in the DRS on those medium tyres. And I think the mediums are definitely a lot faster than the softs at this stage, so I think West Ice is going to be under quite a bit of pressure. But let's see where Liam comes out relative to Indigo. It looks like he does come out behind. Is he in the DRS coming into the first sector? And it looks like he's just outside of DRS, so Indigo's given himself a great outlap. He's got the tyres up to temperature, and can he keep Liam outside of his DRS? Indigo hasn't had to use too much DRS. He's down to about 50%, Liam up to about 70%, but it looks like Liam pushing as hard as he can to get back into that DRS, but it looks like Indigo has kept him at bay for this straight at least, so that was a good undercut there from Indigo, getting himself out of the DRS of Liam, as it looks like Clark makes a move on West Ice before the braking zone. So Clark now in the lead of the Grand Prix, and on that alternate strategy, he could be looking at a decent position in this race as he goes to the softs for the end. It looks like a yellow flag in the first sector. I think Wagner is going to be retiring from the session. Or, yes, that's it. He has retired from the session, sadly. That's going to be Wagner's race over after making that early race mistake, losing his front wing, and that has ultimately led to the end of his race. Liam's still out of the DRS of Indigo, so Indigo's done a great job to keep him out of that DRS. It looks like Spirit is actually somewhat keeping up with the top two, as Indigo sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, pushing quite hard to keep Liam out of his DRS. And he's only done it by about a 10th, so Liam also pushing quite hard to try and get back into that DRS. You can see his DRS is only down to about 20%, whereas Indigo has done a little bit of a better job at managing it. He's at 30%. Liam now in the DRS range, but can he maintain it for the next DRS detection point, as it looks like Indigo turning up the speed here to try and keep him out of it. It looks like he's doing a great job so far at keeping Liam out of the DRS, as he's done it for the second time in a row now. Liam getting very close to the DRS, but not quite. So Liam maintains P5 and still outside of the DRS of Indigo ahead of him. But Indigo has got quite a hard job here to keep Liam out of the DRS. As you can see, Liam's red light is now flashing, so this is going to put Indigo at a bit of an advantage, as he has got about 30% ERS, so he's going to be able to push quite harder with the battery, and let's see if he does that before the next DRS zone, because if he can keep Liam out of the DRS for this next DRS zone, Liam might not be able to get back in with the lack of energy in his car, as it looks like the mediums are now definitely a lot faster than the softs, as Spirit has now caught up to the DRS of West Ice, who's almost lost it there to Clark ahead of him, and the gap between Clark and Indigo is only 7 seconds, so Indigo has made up a lot of time on Clark, and Clark is going to have to do a lot of work on those soft tires towards the end of the Grand Prix. Dave getting himself a 3-second time penalty, and with only 9 runners, the field is quite spread out, so sadly not too much action, but Liam is now well and truly in the DRS of Indigo ahead of him, and will be getting it for the next straight, and has the 1 lap fresher medium compound tires, but is below 10% ERS and really struggling with the energy, and that's going to put him at a major disadvantage compared to NFR Indigo. DRD Spirit now very close to the back of West Ice, and could be looking for a move into turn 12, as you can see, using plenty of the overtake, going down the inside into turn 12. Can he hold this move down the inside? West Ice tries to take it around the outside, but it looks like he backed out of that move. Obviously knows that these softs are a lot slower than the mediums at this stage, and I think West Ice will be thinking of a pit stop soon enough to come onto the mediums. He's obviously gone a lot longer than Indigo, and it gives me a bit of a sneaking suspicion as to what Indigo's strategy is. Is he going for the 2-stop in this race, and is that the right strategy? With only 9 runners, the safe the chance of a safety car decreases massively. So the two-stop might not work out for him. West Ice now comes in for mediums, which will easily take the end. But Indigo, I'm not too sure about, although I'm not 100% on what the tyre wear numbers are around this track. DRD Spirit sticking with Clark in the top two, and waiting to get their first pit stop onto the soft compound tyres, which they will be looking to do in only a few laps time now, as they should be boxing around lap 17 or even 16 if they're trying to stretch the tyres. Maybe lap 18. We'll have to see what they go with. But right now, Liam just staying in the DRS of Indigo ahead of him, and trying to save up the bit of a battery that he had to use to catch Indigo in the first place. So we'll definitely be looking to get that battery back. As you can see, it's very, very hard to recharge the battery at this track. He was below 10% a couple of laps ago, and it looks like not looking for a move into turn 12, as he actually backed out of it, stayed in 7th gear, and then lifted before the corner. Possibly low on fuel. The fuel usage, I guess you could say, at this track is quite high. You need to really overfuel your car by a lap or so to make sure that you have enough fuel to get to the end of the Grand Prix. LFR Indigo now 3.5 seconds off of the leaders, and they're going to have to catch up by an entire pit stop, but they will at least have the power of the soft tyres and have a lot more grip than these guys, but only for a few laps, as the soft tyres will start to fall off. But who knows, maybe Indigo will be going for a two-stop, and maybe Liam will be following him on that strategy, as I think stretching the mediums for 18 laps is quite a lot, but we'll have to see. As I think the mediums can probably make it, as the top two will most likely be stretching their mediums for about 15 or 16 laps, so I think the one-stop strategy is definitely possible after boxing on lap 9, I think it was, is when Indigo boxed. And he's now caught up from the start of the lap to now. He's caught up a second in the matter of a sector and a half on the top two. So he's got some great pace with these mediums and really pushing them for all they're worth. And we'll definitely be catching up to the top two quite soon. Liam staying in the DRS of Indigo ahead of him, charging up the battery. And it might just be a few mind games here until the end of the race, until one of them tries to go for a move. Liam obviously saving up that battery so he can push towards the end of the Grand Prix and get that position going across the line for the final lap. But we'll have to see. We still have 14 laps to go in this Grand Prix as Clark crosses the line to start lap 15. Indigo now 5/10 off the DRS of Spirit, and it looks like Indigo has been saving up battery himself, and maybe once he gets the DRS of the top two, might use that to his advantage and try to break the DRS to Liam behind. It's going to be interesting to see how he uses the top two to benefit his race, as looks like almost got a warning there, really getting nice and close to getting a warning, getting himself a 3-second time penalty. That'll be the last thing he wants to do in this race, as that's exactly what West Ice does, getting himself a 3-second time penalty. Indigo now well and truly in the DRS of TRD Spirit ahead of him, and he's going to be able to use this to defend from Liam quite nicely and possibly break the DRS to Liam behind. We'll have to see how that plays out, as it looks like Spirit goes for the move down into turn 12 down the inside on Clark, and this is going to get Indigo nice and close to the action and really invite him for an overtake. I don't think he's going to be making it right now, as West Ice overtakes Joshua on the DRS straight in the middle sector, but Clark almost pushing Spirit through the corners there. It's a little bit of contact was made between the two drivers. Indigo nice and close to the back of Clark now, and I think he'll definitely be looking for a move into turn 1. He's going to have to look for a good exit though off this next turn, as all these drivers very, very close to each other. Indigo now looking for a move into turn 1 on Clark, or maybe not, as it looks like he's just going to try and defend from Liam behind. As you can see, he has so much more grip than Clark ahead of him, is able to brake so much later, as he does have 9 lap fresher tyres than the 2 ahead of him. So that's going to put him at a major advantage, and we'll be looking for the move quite soon. As you can see there, Liam only about a tenth and a half behind Indigo, getting nice and close to the back of him, and almost pushing him through the turn. Indigo doing the exact same to Clark ahead of him, as a little bit of a look down the inside there into turn 11, but is now going to have the DRS for this next straight. Liam is going to be looking to stay as close as possible and follow him through on this move. TRD Spirit's red light is now flashing, so Clark could also be looking for a move, and that's exactly what he's doing. And is Spirit about to be overtaken 3 times as Indigo tries to go around the outside there. Clark goes way too deep into that turn, squeezes Indigo off of the circuit. Indigo now has the inside line for this next right-hander, but it looks like Clark is going to be able to hold it around the outside now, has the inside line for this next left-hander, but it looks like he's really being aggressive, getting the elbows out and truly squeezing Indigo off of the track 2 times in a row there. And I think the stewards will definitely have to look into that one, as Indigo has now lost position to Liam, and it wasn't even worth it because Clark now comes into pit lane, and all he's done is lost himself time and lost Indigo P1 in this race. So yeah, I think Clark was being extremely aggressive there for little to no reason, as he was a pit stop down on an alternate strategy, and that has now really compromised Indigo's race, or possibly put him in a good position. He now has the DRS of Liam ahead of him, and will just be able to sit in that, save up some battery, and he gets to pick what lap the move is made on, and possibly in the better position, as it looks like a spin there for Dave, who's on the hard compound tyres, and he's just lost his front wing coming out of turn 1, currently last place, but still going to get 2 points in this race since there's only 9 runners left. And it looks like he's going to have to come into the pit lane, and it's going to be interesting to see if he comes into pit lane and finishes out the race to get the 2 points, or maybe getting a little bit angry at himself and retiring from the session. Clark now nice and close to the back of West Ice, and looking for a move on this DRS straight now, and with the power of those soft compound tyres is a lot faster going into turn 12, and gets that move done up into P6, and is currently 17.8 seconds behind Liam, who's in the lead of this race. And looks like Spirit has left it a lap too late, as he's lost 3 seconds to the 2 guys ahead of him, and quite a bit of time to Clark as well. And I think he definitely should have come in last lap, but he's now coming in this lap for the soft compound tyres, as it looked like Mentos might have gotten the DRS bit straight. No, just missed out on TRD Spirit coming into the pit lane there. But yeah, it looks like Clark is going to be looking to make his way through the field, and could be looking at a podium in this race as he overtakes TRD Spirit, who's just come into the pit lane to get on these soft compound tyres, and lost quite a bit of time to Clark there, so leaving it a lap too late. Clark now 8.7 seconds behind King, currently P4 in this race, and King 3.2 seconds behind his teammate Mentos. So I think a podium is definitely on for Clark. He's got 11 laps to push for it, and he's going to be pushing as hard as possible, already breaking the DRS to West Ice behind, as he sets a purple sector 1 in this Grand Prix. LFR Indigo with the power of the DRS. Looks like he's turned off the DRS, as he does not want to make this move, but Liam also wants him to make this move, and looks like Liam might have lifted going into there and let Indigo through. As you saw, Indigo did not have the DRS open, and it looks like both of these drivers want to be behind each other, but they can't be doing this too much, as that would put them under pressure from Mentos, King and Clark. So it looks like Indigo is going to be in the lead in this Grand Prix, and a bit of mind games here between the as both of them want to have the DRS and want the other one to be leading to put themselves in the best position in this race. They both have a decent amount of ERS now, around 40% for both of them, and one of them could look to possibly break the DRS, but we'd have to see. Just sticking within each other's DRS as Clark sets a 33.6, and that is an absolutely rapid time there, and 1.2 seconds faster than Indigo's time on the medium compound of tires. So Clark flying at this stage of the race and looking to catch King in about 3 to 4 laps, and I think it's the overtake. And that's going to be the more difficult part. But with this long DRS straight that we're coming onto now with Indigo, should be a lot easier for Clark to make that move. As you can see, just gaining and gaining and gaining on King. And if we ride on board with Indigo here, it doesn't look like any lifts from Indigo. Didn't want to be in the lead, but now that he is, he's just going to play the cards he's been dealt and maintain his lead over Liam. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of strategy here between the two drivers, how they are going to play this race out in their minds, who knows, as Liam obviously wants to be in second place, to have that DRS to choose when he pushes, and have the power of the DRS to make that move work. As that Spirit looks like he went down the inside into that last left-hander and gets himself up into P6 on those soft tires and pushing quite hard. As it looks like Clark gained about 1.5 seconds on that last lap on King ahead of him, and it's definitely going to be quite close to King, and he'll be looking to push for a podium, but it's going to be quite difficult to do that. He's not got too many laps left. He has got 9 laps left, so not too many, not too little, and he's going to be pushing quite hard, as I've said many times before. But it looks like right now not too many people going for any moves. Like I've said before, Indigo maintaining the lead over Liam. Liam staying in that DRS, doesn't want to make a move right now. Mentos just maintaining his position. Might want to push a little bit harder, as he does know. He can see Clark on his relative, and knows that Clark is pushing quite hard and catching him by quite a few seconds even per lap. So Mentos will be looking to push a little bit to keep himself out of harm's way compared to Clark. And King, with that 3-second time penalty, that 6 seconds, sorry, he's currently behind Clark, but Clark still needs to make that move on King to get himself up into P4 and chase down P3 in this race. Spirit doing the exact same thing. He'll be looking to get within 6 seconds of King and fight for P5 in this race. Dice and RS Joshua battling it out at the back of the grid. West Dice has a lot fresher tyres, but has he got more penalties? And it looks like the answer is no. It looks like Joshua actually has 6 seconds, whereas West Dice has 3 seconds. So West Dice in a good position compared to Joshua, and looking to get P7 in this race. But Clark has now gotten the gap down to about 2.3 seconds, and will be in striking distance in just a few laps time. But as you can see there, he has got himself below 10% ERS, and only 0.3 off of his best sector, so putting him some pretty consistent times. As it looks like Joshua goes for the move on West Dice. I think that's because of a mistake. It does not look like West Dice has wing damage, so he's still looking to compete for P7, and all he has to do is stay within 3 seconds of Joshua ahead of him if he wants P7 in this race and score some decent points for himself and his team. But Clark now 2 seconds behind King, just 9/10 off of the DRS, and will be looking to try and get it possibly for the next DRS straight, but he's only got a few turns to try and get that. But as you can see, coming into turns like this and the triple right-hander, he's going to just have so much more grip than King as he ride on board coming into this triple right-hander. As you can see, flat out, and not moving up to 7th gear on exit. But doesn't look like he's gained enough time to get in the DRS for this straight. But I think he will be within the DRS coming into turn 1. We'll have to see. Getting a bit of a distant tow from King ahead of him. and is definitely going to be in the DRS coming into the S's. As you can see, King has also got his red light flashing, so they're both quite low on the ERS. So I think Clark is going to be a massive advantage with the soft tyres and the DRS. As you can see now, in an 8/10 gap to King ahead of him, and is going to be looking for a move into turn 12, so long as he can get a good exit off of this next hairpin. So let's see if he can get that coming into this hairpin. Takes that quite nicely, no lockups going into there, nice and early on the power, using 4th gear out of there, actually using a little bit of his overtake, but he might go below 1%, as he almost went to, he does go to 0% there, so that's going to lose him quite a bit of speed on the straight, and it's going to stop him from making a move on King as he gets quite close to the back of King, who has a lockup going into that turn. Clark has quite a big lockup going into that right-hander. Clark now right on the back of King, pressuring him into a move. King goes deep, and Clark is now going to go for the switchback, has the outside line for this triple right-hander, and can he hold this move around the outside? And with the power of those soft compound tyres, he's able to get that move done around the outside and moves himself up into P4, and now going to chase down Mentos for the next 6 laps. And let's see if he can get himself into a podium position in this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Liam staying in the DRS of Indigo ahead of him and not looking for a move so far, but we are getting towards the final few laps. He's going to be looking for a move quite soon now, and as you can see, the gap is 4/10, just sitting in that DRS. He's able to hold his gap from Indigo ahead of him, and has got the pace to do that, and has put himself in a decent position to go for the win in this Grand Prix, as we see Dave spinning in the final sector, pushing quite hard on those soft tyres as he hasn't got much else to do, I guess. And currently down in P9, Liam getting quite close to the back of Indigo, has a look down the inside and just trying to put Indigo off of his line, and trying to intimidate him and make sure he knows that he's in his mirrors and that he's there and ready to make a move at a moment's notice. So as you can see, following him quite closely, Clark currently 2.7 seconds off of Mentos. His soft tyres are going to start falling off soon enough, but not right now, possibly in the next 2 to 4 laps. So he has still got some life in those tyres. He's going to use that to catch up to Mentos ahead of him, who's actually gained quite a bit of time on the top 2. The gap was 4 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, and is now down to 3.5. So Mentos is going to have to defend quite hard from Clark if he wants to get a podium in this Grand Prix and get a decent position for his team and himself in this race. Liam once again staying in the DRS, and let's see if he makes a move. I hardly doubt it coming onto lap 24, and you'd have to assume that the moves are going to be made around lap 27, where he can put himself in the best position for the final lap of the Grand Prix. So right now, coming onto the straight, is he thinking of a move? Is he getting impatient with his strategy? And I think the answer is going to be no, as he turns off the DRS, stays out of the slipstream, cools down the tyres a little bit, as like I've said before, tyre temperature is quite high around this track. And Clark has now got the gap down to 2 seconds to Mentos ahead of him, who was gaining quite a bit of time on the top 2. The gap has gone from 4 seconds to 2.7, and I don't know where Mentos has found this pace, but could he start to put the top 2 under pressure, and could he bring Clark into this battle? And maybe Indigo and Liam are just taking it easy. They don't need to take too much out of the tyres, and Indigo is controlling the pace, and he knows that he doesn't have to go fast, because if he goes fast, he's going to take life out of the tyres, and for nothing. As Liam now goes for a move down the inside on lap 25 on Indigo and takes the lead of this Grand Prix. Didn't look like Indigo fought that too hard, but it's Liam going to start using the ERS to try and break away. He's now got 80% ERS. He's saved that quite nicely but I think Indigo is just going to stay in the DRS. Liam possibly compromising his race position, as I think the DRS is the best place to be. The gap between Mentos and the top two is now just 2 seconds. That gap is coming down by a lot. I don't know what's going on there, but Mentos has got a lot of pace over these guys all of a sudden. And let's ride on board with Indigo here. Is he going to be looking for a move into turn 12? I really don't think he is. He's got the DRS open, but he's not using any of that ERS. He just wants to stay in this DRS of Liam. But Liam's obviously confident that he saved up enough ERS to defend for the rest of the race. But let's see if that confidence can be converted to a race win, as now in the lead of the Grand Prix. And it looks like Mentos has stopped closing down the gap and possibly pushing quite hard just to keep Clark away from him. Clark now 4/10 outside of the DRS, and as Liam is about to cross the line, we're only going to have 3 laps of racing to go in this USA Grand Prix. So the gap between Clark and Mentos ahead is 1.4 seconds, getting quite close to the back, but the soft tires are going to start to drop off, but the mediums dropped off quite a while ago. Now 16 lap old. So the gap is now down to 1.2 seconds. Is Clark going to be trying to get into the DRS for this next straight? He's going to have to push quite hard coming into these next few turns if he wants that DRS. As you can see, the detection point is the green circle coming on the run down into turn 12. He's 1/10 off of the DRS, and it looks like he's just about going to miss out on the DRS for this straight. Whereas Indigo, nice tucked into the slipstream of Liam ahead of him. He's got the DRS, deciding not to use the ERS, and Liam also not using the ERS. But Indigo is having a look around the outside, does not want to commit to that too heavily, and actually causes Liam to have quite a big lockout going into there. Mentos now getting the gap down to 1.6 seconds, and these two drivers at the top obviously trying to put themselves in the best positions, not pushing too hard, has allowed Mentos to catch up. But Clark is now 9/10 behind Mentos and is going to be in the DRS for the next straight, and that's going to put Mentos under quite a bit of pressure. And could Clark even look at P2 or P1 in this Grand Prix? We've only got 2 more laps to go as we enter the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. It's Indigo looking for a move into gear. It looks like he turns on the overtake quite late on the straight. Is that a sign that he's going to start pushing and go for a move soon enough? We'll have to see. Indigo nice and close to the back of Liam, and like I said, I predicted that the moves will most likely be seen on lap 27 to put themselves in the best position for the final lap of the Grand Prix. But maybe Indigo is going to hold off for one final lap, or maybe that isn't wise. We'll have to see as we now come down into turn 11 and get ready for this DRS straight in the middle sector. Let's see what Indigo is going to do. And riding on board, looks like he's started to use his ERS. So he's trying to catch up to Liam now and trying to go for a move. He looks to the outside line as Liam defending the inside quite heavily. Can he go around the outside? A bit of a lock up on the front left, and Liam pushing him off of the track there. And Indigo is not going to be happy with that. And he actually gets a 3-second time penalty for being pushed wide there. And looks like he didn't get on the power for quite a while. I don't know what happened there, but Mentos is now in the DRS of Indigo ahead of him, and Clark in the DRS of Mentos ahead of him. So Spirit also making moves, getting himself up into P5, but the battle for P2 is now on. Indigo's 3-second time penalty is going to send him back quite a bit, but let's hope he can get that removed. I'll be sure to tell you about that next week once the post-steward results are out. But I'm just going to have to assume that Indigo will get that penalty removed, as that was obviously not very fair from Liam. We now see Clark going around the outside at turn 1. Mentos leaving lots of space, a lot of respect between the two drivers, and Clark gets himself up into P3 and now going to chase down LFR Indigo for P2 in this race. And this alternate strategy for Clark could work out perfectly, as Liam has ran away from Indigo. And even if Indigo gets that 3-second time penalty removed, he will not be winning this race, but could still get P2 in this race. Clark is right behind him. Clark has under 10% ERS, whereas Indigo has about 40%. So it's going to be quite hard for Clark to get past, but Clark does have the power of the DRS. Indigo going off of the track there, and I don't know if he got a warning for that, but Clark is now going to be looking to go down the inside into turn 12, and it looks like leaving plenty of space for Indigo on the outside there, unlike Liam. And Clark has now got himself up into P2 in this race with the alternate strategy, and could be looking at 18 points, but Indigo goes for a late dive, and Clark predicts it and goes for the switchback and is going to maintain P2 in this race. Just 2 turns to go. That was a great defense from Clark, and now into the final 2 turns. Is Indigo going to go for a last turn dive bomb into this final left-hander? It does not look like he is, and Clark comes across the line to come P2, whereas Liam wins the American Grand Prix with some dodgy defensive tactics coming into turn 12, but he gets the win. Nevertheless, unless he gets a post-race penalty, I'll inform you about any penalties next week. Clark, though, all the way from P10 to P2 in this Grand Prix, an absolutely amazing performance from him, up 8 positions on that alternate strategy, and really showed great pace all race and was able to catch up an entire pit stop to Indigo ahead of her. Mentos finishes on the podium, but if I had to guess, Indigo will most likely get that penalty removed, and at least in my books, I think Indigo should have gotten that podium. Spirit in P5 on the same strategy as Clark, just wasn't able to make it work as well as Clark, but still gets P5. That's a decent race from him. Joshua is looking to fight for the championship, only P6, and that might put him out of the championship fight. King, with that bad start, goes all the way down to P7, and with lots and lots of penalties, also pushing him down quite a few positions. West Ice finishes P8 in this Grand Prix, and Dave, coming around the final turn, although it does look like he is disconnected, comes across the final turn and across the line to end this USA Grand Prix. But obviously not too much action in that race, a bit of a calmer race, with only 11 people showing up, 2 of which DNFing, but still a great battle at the end there in the final few laps. And as you can see, Liam in first place. That's going to help him out massively in the championship, but I'm just going to accept these results and say Mentos got a podium, and Indigo losing quite a few points coming P4. But like I said, the stewards can make their decisions, remove and give penalties, and I'll be sure to update you all next week. But that's going to be it, guys, for PSGL's PlayStation Formula 9. I hope to see you all next week on Monday at 8 o'clock. And I truly hope that you enjoyed that race. As you can see, Clark getting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix too. That's a 19 points for him, and I'm sure you'll be very pleased with that result. But I hope you all have a good rest of your night or day, depending on whatever part of the world you live in. And see you all next week.